Okay, something really big is happening in India's energy sector, and it's all centered on the state of Odisha. They've just rolled out a new policy that isn't just making a few waves. It's basically creating a blueprint for the future of renewable power in the entire country. And listen, if you're an investor, a developer, or even a policymaker, you're going to want to pay close attention to this.
So let's start with the big question, right? The one that everyone in renewables has to solve. Solar and wind power are fantastic, but they're intermittent. So what do you do when the sun goes down or the wind stops blowing, but an entire nation still needs electricity? Well, the answer is storage. And one of the oldest, most reliable ways to store energy is suddenly making a huge comeback.
We're talking about pumped storage projects, or PSPs. And the idea behind them is, honestly, just brilliant. Think of them as giant rechargeable water batteries. When you have a ton of extra, cheap power on the grid, say in the middle of a sunny day, you use it to pump water from a low reservoir to a high one. Then, when demand peaks and you need that power back, you just let the water flow back down through turbines. It's clean, it's efficient, and it is incredibly powerful.
Now, to really get why Odisha's move is such a big deal, we have to rewind a little bit and look at the national picture. Back in April 2023, the central government's Ministry of Power put out its own guidelines to try and get more of these projects built across India. And that was a really important first step. It laid the foundation for everything that would come next.
And look, those national guidelines, they did a lot of things right. They got rid of interstate transmission charges to make the projects more financially viable. They created guaranteed demand with these things called energy storage obligations. And they even offered up some cash for building stuff like roads and transmission lines. It was a really solid start.
But, and this is a big but, the national policy left some major holes, especially if you were a private investor. It didn't really solve the headache of environmental clearances, it didn't give you a clear way to get paid for stabilizing the grid, and most importantly, it didn't give private companies a clear path to go out, find their own sites, and get them developed. This left a huge cloud of uncertainty.
And this is exactly where Odisha steps onto the scene. They saw these exact gaps, these exact problems, and they designed their own policy to fix them. And this isn't some small tweak. This is a bold, direct answer to all the challenges the national guidelines just couldn't solve.
And Odisha isn't just talking a big game. They've already done the homework. The state went out and identified over 45 potential sites for these projects. That's a massive, pre-vetted pipeline of opportunities just sitting there, ready for developers to come in and start building.
But here it is. This is the single biggest innovation in the entire policy. And it is a complete game changer. For the very first time, Odisha is allowing private developers to go out and identify their own off-stream project sites. This totally flips the script. Instead of waiting for the government to hand you a project, developers can now go find the best spots themselves and drive the process forward. And the process they've set up for this is so refreshingly straightforward. There's a 3-week window where you apply with a basic feasibility report. You pay a small one-time fee. Just 10,000 rupees per megawatt. And then, after the state agency does its homework, you get your permission to proceed. It's that simple. It's a clear, transparent runway from an idea to a real project. The money side of things is just as clear. So, in exchange for developing your own site, you share a small slice of the revenue with the state. It starts at a super predictable 10 paisa for every unit of energy you sell, and that number only goes up by a fixed amount every 5 years. That's the kind of financial certainty that lets an investor build a real, solid business case.
Odisha's policy also takes a sledgehammer to some of the biggest operational costs. Get this, they've made it official that since these projects don't actually consume water, they just borrow it and put it back, developers will pay zero water cess. That is a huge, direct cost saving that goes straight to the bottom line.
And the savings don't even stop there. The policy also gets rid of electricity duty and cross-subsidy surcharges on the power you buy to pump the water uphill. This makes it way cheaper to charge your water battery, which of course makes the whole operation that much more profitable.
So when you actually stack it all up, how much better is Odisha's approach? Well, let's put the state policy and the national guidelines side by side. When you do, the advantages for an investor are just crystal clear. It's a night and day difference.
All right, let's break this down. The center said sites should mostly be identified by the state. Odisha says, no, go find your own. And that's a game changer. The center was silent on water charges, leaving it up in the air. Odisha gives a firm zero cess guarantee. Then there's the state's right of first refusal, or RFOR. That's their right to buy power from you first. Instead of being vague, Odisha clearly defines it, removing a huge piece of uncertainty. And finally, forget about vague timelines. Odisha has put in strict 2-year milestones. And if you miss them, you risk getting blacklisted. This means only serious committed players are going to be in this market.
So what's the bottom line here for an investor or a developer? It's simple. Odisha has just rolled out the red carpet and created one of the clearest, most attractive investment opportunities in the entire Indian renewable energy space, period. And hey, you don't have to take my word for it. It's right there in the policy's own introduction. It says its goal is to promote these projects through the participation of the private sector. Now, that's not just some bureaucratic jargon. That is a clear, official invitation from the government saying, we want your capital, and we're ready to do business.
So let's just quickly recap the key takeaways here. What Odisha is offering is a massive first-mover advantage. You get these innovative new models like self-identification, you get powerful incentives that directly cut your costs, you get incredible certainty and clarity with well-defined rules, and on top of all that, you get a 40-year contract on a build, own, operate, transfer model, giving you decades of revenue visibility. It's really the whole package.
So for anyone who is serious about getting into the energy storage market, the message could not be clearer. The opportunity is in Odisha, and it is happening right now. The state's portal for registering these sites is already live, and the window to apply for these incredible self-identified projects is opening very soon.
You know, by providing the exact things private capital needs, clarity, incentives, and flexibility, Odisha hasn't just written a good policy, it might have just handed the rest of India the actual blueprint for how to build its green energy future. The race is on to create a stable, renewable grid, and right now, Odisha is leading the charge. Thanks for watching.